Everyone, welcome back to my channel Simplifying Business Studies. Myself Kashish Talwani, your business studies teacher. I'm here with chapter number 3 of your book, which is Public, Private and Global Enterprises. So in this chapter, we are going to study about this part, public sector enterprises. In our previous chapters, in our chapter 2, forms of business organizations, we have studied all different enterprises which comes under private sector. We studied all this part. So in this chapter we will study about public sector, which includes these organizations. Together we call them PSU, that means public sector undertakings or public sector enterprises. Let's understand what is private sector enterprises. Private sector enterprises are those firms which are owned, controlled, and managed by private businessmen. For example, Tata is one organization which is owned by certain individuals. Uh, what is the main purpose of having these kind of organizations? These kind of organizations are generally uh, formed for making profit. That means profit motive is the main objective of these kind of organizations. Private sector organizations has these different types of organizations. We have already studied them in chapter 2. Sole proprietorship, HUF, Hindu undivided family, partnership business, cooperative society and joint stock company. Now we will understand what are public sector enterprises. So public sector enterprises, as the name is so suggestive, these are the enterprises which are owned, managed by central government or state government or by the combination of both. These are certain organizations in our country which are basically PSCs, that means public sector enterprises. Railways, LIC, FCI, post offices in India. These are the organizations whose basic purpose is to serve the society and not making profit. What are different forms of public sector enterprises? There are three forms which we will study in this chapter: departmental undertaking, public corporation, or we can call them statutory corporation, and government companies. These are certain examples which we have. These are different kinds of organization. Like Post and Telegraph Department in our country is a departmental undertaking. Reserve Bank of India is a statutory corporation or public corporation, and Indian Telephone Industry is a government company. Now let us first understand the very first type, departmental undertaking. Departmental undertakings are the oldest and most traditional form of organizing public sector enterprises. Basically, government function through these kind of departments, and the activities are performed by them only. And these activities are integral part of functioning of any government. So basically, we can say that these are the undertakings which are created by government. These are financed and controlled by government, managed by government officials, and they are absolutely under the control of one ministry. These are certain examples of departmental undertakings: All India Radio, Doordarshan, our national television channel, Post and Telegraph, and Indian Railways. These are basic examples, and I hope you all should learn at least 3-4 names of every different type of PSCs you will study in this chapter. Now we will understand about features of departmental undertaking. Funding. So these kind of organizations are financed through budget allocation. That means they are financed from the government treasury, and definitely whatever revenue these kind of organization earns, that also goes to the government treasury. Audit and control, definitely, because these organizations are controlled, managed, financed, and everything is under government, so they are subjected to audit by government. Employees, the people who work in these kind of organizations, are called government servants. As you can say, like whosoever is working in Indian Railways will be called a government servant. Control, these are definitely under strict control or direct control of the ministry under which it is working. For example, Northern Railways are under Railway Ministry. Accountability, this word means answerability. That means because these organizations, these departmental undertakings, they work under government. That means, and under government, they work under one ministry. That means they are accountable to that particular ministry and, of course, to the government. Now we will understand about certain merits of departmental undertakings. Control of parliament, so these are certain organizations because government have a strict control over them, so their fund and their operations are controlled by ministry, so they have absolute control of government or parliament. Public accountability, because these organizations main purpose is to serve public, so they hold a complete responsibility on part of government, and these organizations are accountable to public for providing good services at reasonable prices. As we have studied previously also, these organizations get their funding from government only. That means the revenue will also belong to the government. So these organizations are one of the major sources of revenue to the government. So whatever income is earned by these organizations, that goes to the government treasury. National security, these organizations are kept under government control, definitely to maintain certain kind of national security. Because these organizations play a very important part in development or socio-economic growth in a country. That's why it is very important that these organizations should be absolutely in hold of government so that required secrecy is maintained. uh, in case any kind of strategic decisions are to be taken, such as defense. So these organizations play a very important role in national security. Now we will understand about certain limitations of departmental undertaking. Lack of flexibility. Flexibility means freedom of operations. So because these kind of organizations are held by government, the government has complete hold over them, so they don't enjoy much of flexibility. There are certain predetermined rules and regulations, and there is always interference from the ministry, because there are a lot of officials which are involved in decision making process of these kind of organizations. There is always a delay in decisions. There is not just one person but many people, one over another, in the hierarchy of different authorities. So necessary decisions needs lot of approvals from higher authority, so that always makes always results in delays in certain decisions. Because there is always a delay in taking core decisions of any kind of business which is done by these organizations are generally not able to tap certain business opportunities. Like for example, when some business opportunity comes across, there is always a need for quick decision. There is always a need of taking risk, but because of conservative approach, because of keeping themselves limited to certain things, no risky ventures can be taken up by these organizations. So we can say they are not able to get benefit of any kind of opportunity. So this is what it means, tapping business opportunities or tapping business resources. That means we are not able to enjoy the opportunities which may comes across. Red tapeism and bureaucracy, that means, uh, government departments work like that. That means if some work has been given to one person, that he will be depending upon some other person, and that person will be depending upon some other person for the decision. So the files or the work keeps on moving from one table to another. So this definitely results in decision making and operations. So this is what it is, red tapeism. This is what it is called, red tapeism and bureaucracy. Political interference, because these organizations are always under a certain ministry, which is taken care by the ruling government. So there is always a political interference. There may be chances that these ruling political party may utilize the resources of these organizations in a way that it can benefit them more than public. So there is always a political interference. Yes, this is what I was explaining previously. Consumer needs, there can be a possibility that consumers' consideration is not given that much importance, what it actually requires. So, the priorities of any organization may change according to many factors. Now we will understand about second type of organization, that is public corporation. It is also called statutory corporation. Please do not get confused with. It is generally created as an autonomous institution by passing a special act in the parliament or state legislature. So this is one kind of organization which is actually brought into existence by one special act uh, in the parliament, and that one act, it defines the powers, the functions, rules, regulations governing its employees, and its relationship with different government departments. So we can say, there is one example which is there in front of you, RBI. This is one organization which is formed by an act which was called RBI Act 1934. It was brought into existence like that. So as a body corporate, as one organization, this organization is a separate legal entity. It can sue any other party, and it can be sued by anyone in the court of law. And it can also enter into contract, and it can also acquire property in its own name. So if we compare this organization with the previous organization, this organization enjoys more flexibility in operations. Okay. Rest of the differentiations we will definitely understand in later part of this session. These are certain examples. These are certain statutory or public corporations which are formed by some special acts. As I just mentioned, Reserve Bank of India, Indian Airlines Corporation, LIC, Life Insurance Corporation, and KSRTC, which is Kerala State Road Transport Corporation. Now we will understand about different features of public corporation. So first and the very foremost thing, it is formed by a special act which is brought into parliament or state assembly. Ownership, it is owned by government only, like any other government organization. It has separate legal existence, which is different from the previous organization, that is departmental undertaking. Departmental undertaking was not a separate organization, but this organization is a separate organization. It has its own legal existence, and it has, its own properties, its own, you know, uh, area of work. Which is restricted to the organization only. That means it can take its own decisions, it can indulge itself into certain contracts, it can buy properties, it can expand its business, it can utilize its revenue. So these are the things which are different from the previous organization. Financial autonomy, that means funds of obtains funds through borrowings from treasury or public and from the sales of goods and services. It has power to utilize its revenue. So how this kind of organization is formed? Basically, this the previous funding is done by government only, but it is in form of borrowing. That means this organization, once it starts earning, it pays back the fund which is taken from the government, and that means it is self-financed or it is financed through the public. Okay, and it can generate its revenues by sale of certain goods and services. And yes, if it is an autonomous organization, it has all the powers to utilize its revenue. That means it can use whatever it earns. It doesn't need to depend upon decisions on certain kind of government officials or ministry or government itself. Employees. So these employees, the employees of this organization are appointed as per the terms and conditions of the corporation, and they are not treated as government servants, unlike previous organization, that is departmental undertaking. Independent accounting and audit. So it has its own accounting and audit system, which is not subjected to any government audit and budget allocation. Now we will understand about different merits of public corporation. So it enjoys high degree of flexibility if we will compare it with departmental undertaking. Because it is a separately, it has separate legal existence. It is not a part of government or any government ministry. So it is free from any undesirable government control, and it enjoys that kind of freedom, which makes it a more flexible organization than departmental undertaking. Least government interference, that means because there is no budget allocation of funds from government, there is no much government control. Because funds are not allocated by government, so that makes it an independent organization with not much government control into it. Autonomous status. Autonomous means one organization which has its own existence, which is separate from everyone else. So they can have their own policies, their own procedures, their own rules, regulations, but yes, within the purview of the act which is passed in parliament. So it has to make its rules, regulations, policies, procedures according to the act. Helps in economic development because this organization is free to work and generate revenue by sale and purchase of goods and services. So it helps in economic development. It contributes in the economic development in a big way. Stability, these organizations, because they are not subjected to any political change, they are not a part and parcel of any government or government ministry, so any political change does not bring any change in their existence. So these are kind of stable organizations with least government interference. Now we will understand about limitations of public corporation. So rules and regulations, they don't enjoy uh, the operational flexibility as the rules and regulation has to be as per the act, and any kind of amendments in act is only possible when the ruling government and things are favorable in parliament. So we can say that in a way there is certain kind of interference. Political interference, as I just mentioned, they do not practice complete autonomy because there has to be some kind of, there is generally, um, interference from the ministry. So, yes, in comparison to the previous organization, they enjoy flexibility, but on real grounds, they do not actually enjoy complete autonomy as promised. There are certain chances of corruption because those who are working on certain kind of position which renders certain powers to those people, there can be a situation where these people may use their power for any personal gain or personal growth. So yes, there can be certain chances of corruption. Inefficiency, because there is no competition and there is no profit motive, and these organizations are framed to provide public service. So there can be a possibility that these organizations and the people working in these organizations, due to lack of competition, they become inefficient in a long run. So less productivity is expected, is seen in these kind of organizations. Delay in actions. Um, Quick decisions cannot be taken by officials because there is always certain kind of interference from the government, as there are certain nominees in the board of directors from the government side. So generally decisions are not taken that quickly how they are expected to. Now, the last organization under the government, under PSEs, is government company. So, as per the flexibility is concerned, this kind of organization enjoys maximum freedom and flexibility. So, what is government company? Let's understand that. So, as per Section 245 of Indian Companies Act, a government company means any company in which not less than 51% of paid up capital is held by either central government or any state government, or partly by central government or partly by one or more of the state governments, and includes a company which is a subsidiary of a government company. So to put it simply, public enterprise organized under the Companies Act are called government companies. This is one kind of company where at least 51% of share capital is held by central government or by state government or by both. It can be a combination of both also. These are certain examples of government companies in India. Hindustan Shipyard Limited, HSL, BHEL, Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, Coal India, and SAIL, Steel Authority of India. So these are certain organizations which are government companies. Let's understand features of government company. So incorporation, it is exactly incorporated like a company, and recently it is under Companies Act 2013. It has separate legal entity. That means it can have its own properties, it can enter into contract, it can sue and can be sued in its own name. That means it is separate from uh, all its members, shareholders. It has an absolute different identity, which is separate from everyone who holds any position in the company. Management. So management is vested in the hands of director appointed by the government. Because this is a government company, the board of directors is appointed by government, and they only take care of the management of the company. Memorandum and article of association, these are certain things which are responsible for rules and regulations uh, according to which this whole company run. Accounting and audit procedure, they are exempted from accounting and audit rules as per the Act. Generally, a company is needed to get its account audited and publish its account in the news forum or any journal. But because these are government companies, they are exempted from any accounting and audit rules which are mentioned in the Companies Act 2013. Although, what provision has been done for these companies? The government appointed auditor's report should be presented in the parliament or legislative assembly. These companies are supposed to, present a report, which is auditor's report, in parliament or legislative assembly. Funds invested in government companies is investment in government companies is raised by government shareholdings and from private shareholders. That means 51% share is purchased by government, and rest of the investment comes from private parties. Now, merits of government companies. Easy to form. They are absolutely easy to form if we will compare it with the other forms, like the one which needs an act to come into existence. Separate legal entity, they have absolutely separate existence, which is separate from all the members, and of course, government. Quick decisions, because it has separate legal entity. uh, the board of director has all the rights to take decisions, and definitely this brings in quicker decisions and prompt decision as it enjoys more autonomy. Prevents unhealthy business. How it can be done. It can control unhealthy business practices by providing goods and services at a reasonable prices. So, because this is a government company and it holds certain kind of reputation or goodwill in the market, so all these things can be avoided by these companies, getting themselves indulged to any unfair trade practices or anything which can harm the reputation of government. Now, what are the limitations of government company? Autonomy, we say it is an autonomous organization, but it is just for, you know, it is just for namesake. That means actually government interferes, and they generally do not let the autonomy exist in reality. Since the government is only the shareholder in some companies, provision of Companies Act have no relevance. So this whole company does not work as per the Companies Act 2013. It generally has lot of interference from the parliament or the running government. No accountability. There is no accountability. That means all those private individuals who are investing in this company, they do not get any kind of publishing of papers in any newspaper, so they have no idea about like how company is working. And uh, all these things are only done in parliament, so the private participants, private shareholders, they are never able to judge the real picture about the company's growth and perspectives. Main purpose is not serve. Being the major shareholder, government controls the affairs of the company, and it defeats the main purpose by registering like other companies. Basically, this kind of company came into existence just to fulfill the purpose of um, earning profits, uh, indulging themselves into certain things which encourages economic growth, but these main purposes are generally not fulfilled because of government control and interference. Now we will understand about what is the role of public sector. Okay, the public sector role has been changing over these years. We will understand now how public sector has played a very important role before the new economic policy came into existence. So this public sector, what we have just studied, it plays a very important role in the economic development of any country. The most important objective of public sector is economic growth with social justice and providing service to the society. So these are certain things which only government can take care of. Economic growth with social justice and also providing service to the society. These are core areas where no private participants or no private players can work on these things. So for the growth of an economy, for the growth of a nation, public sector has to have this role to, make a country go ahead economically, socially. Importance of public sector, we will understand the point. Development of infrastructure. So transport, communication, fuel, energy, basic and heavy industries, etc. These are those elements which are very, very important for the development, economic development, I can say, for a country, of a country. And uh, infrastructure, as we can say, it is the backbone of economic growth of any country. Private sector generally is reluctant to invest in infrastructure due to large capital and delayed profit. So it makes, the responsibility of the government to invest in such projects which needs a lot of investment, which are actually very time taking, and which are which generally allows very less returns at the end. So, for example, rail, road, sea, air transport was the responsibility of the government. So, these are the things which only can be taken care by public sector. So, government sector has set up various PSUs in these areas wherein private sectors are unwilling to invest. Regional balance. So, government is responsible for developing all the regions and states in a country, and definitely that too in a balanced way. Um, Before 1991, the economic policy came in. Most of the industrial progress was limited to few areas like only port towns and only, the major cities of the country. After 1951, public enterprises were set up in backward and remote areas so that balanced regional development is possible. Major steel plants were set up in the backward or remote areas like Rourkela, Durgapur, Bhilai, all these areas. So generally, uh, public sector was responsible for maintaining regional balance in these areas. Economies of scale. Um, so what is meant by economies of scale? Where generally large scale industries are required to be set up with huge capital outlay. Public sector had to step in to take the advantage of economies of scale. Um, Electric power plant, natural gas, petroleum, telephone industries. These are certain examples of public sector setting up large scale units. These industries require larger base to function economically, which was only possible with government resources and mass scale production. So generally, when some organization indulge itself into huge production of certain goods, they reduce its cost. So this kind of provision can only be made by government, because huge investment is not everyone's cup of tea. So economies of scale was one area which only government worked before 1991. Government has set up large-scale industries in public sector to take advantage of economies of scale. What was brought in? Electrical power plants, petroleum refinery, telephone industries. Check over concentration of economic power. So it is only through public sector that there can be a provision of check over the concentration of economic power. That means, uh, how can I explain this? In private sector, there are very few industrial houses which would be willing to invest in heavy industries. As a result, wealth can get concentrated in few hands and monopolistic activities are encouraged. So public sector is not able to set large industries which require heavy investment, and thus income and benefits that accrue uh, does not go in few hands of private sector, but it gets shared in large number of employees and workers. So this prevented concentration of wealth and economic power uh, in the private sector. So this is also the reason why public sector is very important. Import substitution. Government has set up public sector units for production of capital goods which were imported earlier. Several public sector companies are producing goods on large scale, thus playing an important role in expanding exports of the country also. So, during second and third 5-year plan period, Indian government was aiming to be self-reliant. That means it involved itself in heavy engineering and set up several public sector companies like STC and MMTC, which played very important role in increasing exports in the country. So, uh, because those things which were previously imported are now produced in the country, and also it has moved to certain levels where we can consume our own goods also, and we can export those goods later. Now, government policy. As I have just mentioned, I have mentioned it many times. Government new industrial policy 1991 was brought in towards the public sector. So this is where Government of India has introduced four major reforms in public sector through the industrial policy in 1991. These were what were these reforms? These reforms were restructure and revive potentially viable public sector undertakings. That means if any kind of organization needs any kind of revival or any kind of reconstruction so that it can work well, so that has to be given. Close down PSUs which cannot be revived. So this was the second aim. That means if there is an organization which is constantly under loss, and if we are not able to revive it, we are not able to reconstruct it, then it has to be closed down. Bring down the government equity in all non-strategic PSUs to 26% or lower if necessary. That means government will withdraw its investment from certain organizations and can bring it down to 26%. Protect the interest of the workers. There are a lot of steps taken for the upliftment of workers. For example, like fixing the minimum wage rate for the workers, maximum working hours, and rules regarding the exploitation of workers. So all these things were done to protect the interest of the workers. Now, what are different measures taken by government to reform public sector? Reduction in the number of industries reserved for public sector. When Industrial Policy 1956 was brought in, 17 industries were reserved for public sector. When 1991 policy came in, it was brought down to 8 industries. That means only 8 industries were kept with government, and rest of the industries are now open for private participation. In 2001, only 3 industries were held by government, and rest of the industries are now open for private participation. And these 3 industries are atomic energy, arms, and rail transport. These are reserved for government, and rest all the areas are open for private participation. Disinvestment. So what is disinvestment? Sale of equity shares of public sector undertakings to private sector and to public. That means if there is a government organization which is not working well, which is not, an organization which can generate revenue, which can, be profitable for government decided to open it for private participation. That means it sold its equity, its share in that organization to private sector and to public. What is the benefit of doing this? When government sold this share, government got funds, and they utilized that amount of fund in reviving their other units, or you know work they worked they used that fund to work on the core areas, which were security of the country, railways, and atomic energy. So in this way, government revived their units by opening them for private participation, and also it got fund to utilize it for the betterment of their core areas. Let's read ahead. Government holding in such unit is thereby reduced and private participation enhanced. This is what I just said, and this whole thing is called disinvestment. One more example is there. Sale of share in Indian Petrochemical Limited and Maruti Udyog Limited. So these are two government organizations in which government had, sold their equity to private sector. So children, this is done. I'm actually done with the content of this chapter. I hope this has been useful to all of you. If you have any queries, any comments, you can always reach me through this email, or you can also drop your message in the comment box below. I hope uh, you liked my video, and you will also like it. Uh, and I'm hoping to get many responses from all of you. Hope you all will have good day ahead. Thank you very much.